We live believing that our choices define us, that discipline, restraint, and control are proof of freedom. But what if the desire to control itself is the greatest addiction of all? From the moment we wake, the mind begins to measure. What to eat, what to say, what to avoid, how to appear. We call this responsibility. Yet beneath that surface runs a deeper tension, a silent panic that if we stop controlling, we might dissolve. It's not the behavior that binds us. It's the belief that we are the one doing it. Addiction begins long before the substance, the habit, or the craving. It begins with judgment, the reflex of the mind that divides reality into good and bad, gain and loss, should and shouldn't. Judgment is the first drug, the original stimulant of separation. And like every drug, it promises order but breeds dependence. The sages of non-duality once said, "The mind was not created to judge. It was created to be." To judge is to play God in a universe that already is divine. To control is to resist the natural intelligence of life flowing through us. And yet this resistance is the very engine of the modern self. Look around. The cult of self-improvement, the endless projects of perfection, the diets and regimens, the constant upgrading of identity. Each one a ritual of the same religion, the worship of control. We fear stillness because in stillness, the illusion of the controller fades. But when the need to control collapses, something extraordinary appears, the effortless movement of grace. The ancient texts called it the Holy Spirit, the Tao, the Self, the Witness. Modern language might call it pure awareness. It is not a personality. It uses personality like an instrument. It is not ambition. It is intention without effort. When it moves through us, our actions lose anxiety. They become spontaneous, precise, and kind. At first, this loosening feels terrifying. The ego confuses surrender with annihilation. It asks, if I don't control myself, won't I fall back into chaos? But the truth is reversed. Chaos begins with control. The tighter we grip, the more fragments we create. Consider addiction again: food, sex, money, screens, approval. Each begins as a gesture of control, an attempt to manage inner discomfort. But control breeds craving because what's resisted must be revisited. The mind becomes its own dealer, supplying judgments to keep the illusion alive. We try to regulate behavior the way a child tries to command the tide. We diet, then binge. We promise, then break. We reform, then relapse. The pendulum itself becomes the prison. True freedom begins when we see that every behavior, every compulsion is a message, not of weakness, but of misunderstanding. It says, you've mistaken the body for yourself. You've mistaken thought for truth. When that recognition dawns, the battle ends. Not because we won, but because there is no opponent left. The Course in Miracles called this mind training. Not the training of will, but of vision. To see differently is to live differently. The addiction isn't sugar or alcohol or desire. It's identification, the hypnotic habit of believing that you are the doer. When the doer dissolves, even the strongest craving loses its root. You can observe this directly. The next time an urge arises, don't fight it. Don't act on it. Just look. Notice how it appears as a wave of sensation in the body, a thought in the mind, a memory calling for completion. When you stop labeling it mine, the wave peaks and fades on its own. This is the first miracle, seeing that awareness itself was never addicted. Control is a story the ego tells to feel real. It whispers, without me you'd fall apart. But what if the opposite is true? What if the ego's grip is the very knot choking the flow of life through you? Release the knot and vitality returns. Not forced discipline, but natural harmony. The body then becomes a servant instead of a master. The senses become instruments of wonder, not sources of guilt. The world, once a battlefield of temptations, becomes a cathedral of practice, every experience a doorway to presence. This is the transformation of addiction into awareness. The sugar, the impulse, the screen, they stop being enemies and start being teachers. Each one says, "Look at me. See where you still believe you lack." And when you truly look, the lesson completes itself. You outgrow the need without forcing it away. The mind craves hierarchy, better and worse, higher and lower. It builds idols only to tear them down. You can see it in celebrity culture. The rise, the fall, the applause, the shame. The ego enjoys both the worship and the collapse because both confirm its existence. It doesn't care whether you win or fail. It only cares that you believe the drama is real. Temptation, said the mystics, is the wish to make illusions real. Every time we cling to preference, we baptize illusion into reality. Every should and shouldn't is a prayer to the false god of control. And yet, the moment you notice this, you are free. Awareness doesn't need to stop the wave. It only needs to see it for what it is. Gradually, the obsession with behavior begins to fade, not through moral effort but through disinterest. You outgrow what no longer resonates. Peace becomes more attractive than conflict. Silence becomes sweeter than victory. And the world, once divided into opposites, becomes a single undivided movement of love appearing as everything. The body's fluctuations remain hunger, pleasure, fatigue, but they lose authority. You feed it when it's hungry, rest it when it's tired, move it when it's still. You don't worship or punish it. It is no longer a billboard for guilt. As the mind quiets, life begins to organize itself. People arrive when needed. Opportunities unfold with uncanny timing. Synchronicity replaces strategy. You discover that existence was never chaotic, only your perception was. The same intelligence that makes galaxies spin also breathes you right now. To trust that is the ultimate detox. And then something subtle occurs. The personality softens. It doesn't vanish, it becomes translucent. It serves rather than seeks. You find yourself laughing more easily, forgiving faster, working with precision but without pride. The world hasn't changed. The mirror has been cleaned. This is the true healing of addiction, not behavior modification, but identity revelation. You realize that you were never the addict, never the controller, never the sinner or saint. Those were roles the mind played to experience contrast. Behind them all stands the same infinite awareness, quietly shining, patiently waiting for recognition. When the ancient teachers spoke of salvation, this is what they meant: the restoration of the natural state of mind, innocent, inclusive, fearless. A mind that no longer compares or condemns cannot suffer. It simply perceives what is and moves accordingly. So the question is no longer, how do I control my behavior? But who is the one trying to control? Follow that question far enough and you find no one. In that emptiness, freedom stands revealed. To live from this place is not to withdraw from the world, but to participate fully without attachment. You eat, but you are not the eater. You speak, but you are not the speaker. Life acts through you as wind through an open flute. The melody is effortless because there is no resistance left. This is the end of addiction, not through suppression, but through awakening. When you realize that awareness is complete, the search for completion ends. Control gives way to trust, judgment to vision, effort to flow. And what remains is peace, not as an achievement, but as your original nature. So breathe. Notice this moment as it is. No correction needed. No story to repair. You are not broken. You are reality itself remembering its own face. And in that recognition, every addiction, every attempt to control, dissolves into what it always was, a wave returning to the ocean of consciousness. Peace was never earned. It was only remembered.